I'm Rob York. I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team. And in this session, I'll be talking about the various paths to cloud management in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. We'll start by looking and discussing about the various paths that are available to get to cloud management. We'll also talk about what is cloud value. I'll spend a few moments talking about Configuration Manager and Azure. I'll also talk about immediate cloud value, and then we'll have a look at how we can go about attaching to the cloud in Configuration Manager. One question that often comes up is as customers are looking to understand the recommendations on how to deploy and use Microsoft Endpoint Manager, is they ask about how they should go about doing that. And really, there's a simple answer to all customers. That's use the cloud that makes sense and brings value to your organization. As you can see, there's various paths to modern management, varying from having limited or no existing management tools through to existing Configuration Manager or on-prem complexities. For those customers that have little or no management tools or are new to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, the path to the cloud probably is just going straight to Intune for cloud-only management. For existing Configuration Manager customers, attaching to the cloud is going to bring you additional value as a great first step. This session is mostly focused on enabling cloud scenarios by attaching Config Manager to the cloud. So if you're looking for Intune or cloud-only scenarios, check out the MEM02 session, which will go much deeper on Intune and cloud-only. You'll often hear us talk about cloud value. So let's take a moment to talk about what cloud value is. Cloud value is using the Microsoft Cloud to supercharge your PC management. Cloud value is attaching Configuration Manager to Intune to realize the full power of Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Cloud value augments your existing management investments with cloud capabilities. And cloud value allows you to manage your users and their devices from anywhere over the internet. And cloud value allows you to derive insights and recommendations on how to improve your user experience. As you saw in the previous slide, there are a number of ways to attach Configuration Manager to the cloud. Last year, we announced Tenant Attach, which allows you to get cloud features such as our Cloud Console without any client-side dependencies or prerequisites, such as enrolling the device. Co-management allows you to leverage Intune functionality on your existing Configuration Manager managed Windows 10 estate by enrolling those devices into Intune to gain Intune features on your Windows 10 estate. And finally, cloud hosted. So using Microsoft Azure to host components in your Configuration Manager environment is a great way to bring cloud and internet management to your estate, and also can provide ways to have data center reduction through hosting of Config Manager roles in Azure VMs. Whichever route you take, and in whatever combination, there are features that bring you immediate value the second you enable Cloud Attach. Immediate cloud value is where you can begin to use the cloud features without any migration or extensive enablement work. Examples of immediate cloud value include Endpoint Analytics, Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center as a cloud console for Configuration Manager Tenant Attach, remote actions through co-management, conditional access as a co-management workload, and management anywhere through co-management or through Cloud Management Gateway. Previously, in Config Manager 2012, there were very specific scenarios when it came to support for Azure hosting. However, in Configuration Manager Current Branch, it can be very easily summarized as Azure being just another data center in your environment. And there's no caveats or concerns about hosting Configuration Manager in Azure. Managing remote users is more critical than ever before. Many thousands of Config Manager customers use Cloud Management Gateway to manage their Windows PCs. And Cloud Management Gateway provides a great secure mechanism for managing those devices over the internet, with no need for complex DMZ implementation of server roles and no need for opening of inbound ports. And starting with the 2002 release of Config Manager, Token Auth brings an even more simplified approach to managing your devices over Cloud Management Gateway. Token Auth removes the need for client PKI certificates on your domain joined and workgroup machines. Another way to cloud attach is through co-management. Co-management is the co-engineering of the Config Manager and Intune products to allow your organization to leverage cloud workloads on your Windows 10 estate, whilst continuing to leverage the existing investment that you have in Configuration Manager today. And last year, we announced simplified licensing for co-management. And to paraphrase, if you have a valid and current Configuration Manager license, you can enroll your existing Configuration Manager managed devices into Intune without the need for purchasing a new separate Intune license. The latest improvement for co-managed devices is Configuration Manager apps in the company portal. And this enables you to have a unified end-user app experience across all of your devices in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. When you enable Configuration Manager apps in the company portal, you'll see your available and installed Config Manager apps alongside any apps that you have deployed through Intune. then your users can install and see app status about those configuration manager apps through the company portal. And as I say, this creates that unified end user experience for applications within your enterprise. Let's have a look at how that looks. So the user starts by loading company portal from the start menu of their device. When the company portal loads, you can see here that there are applications that are targeted by both Intune and Configuration Manager. The user can see information about which management services targeted the app, and they can also begin the install. So here the user is installing Microsoft Edge. They get the information about the download and installation state, and finally they'll see that the application is installed and ready for use. One area that Cloud Attach can bring additional value to your organization is through provisioning of devices through modern provisioning and Windows Autopilot. It really is operating system deployment for the cloud age. Most customers are probably used to the traditional way of deploying Windows through operating system deployment. This is where an administrator creates and maintains a custom image and builds a task sequence in order to deploy and configure a device ready for use by the user. This mechanism is often costly in both time and money, as it is a repetitive process to keep those images up to date and those task sequences built and configured in a way that makes sense for the current environment. Windows Autopilot looks to streamline that process by having a user-driven installation to result in a productive and secure device. The user unboxes the device themselves, runs through a minimal user interaction onboarding experience, logging on with their credentials, applications coming down through Intune, and again, the result is a secure and productive device. And this second mechanism is increasingly common. We've seen a huge increase in customers looking to move to Autopilot to remove that complexity and reduce the cost of getting new devices to their users. Autopilot also enables customers to begin processes that enable provisioning from anywhere without being coupled to the corporate network. One advancement we've been working on is Autopilot into co-management. One complexity until now has been how to rationalize that modern experience through modern provisioning and Autopilot with a complex and established application catalog in Config Manager. Autopilot into co-management allows you to bring the best of both worlds and have a modern provisioning experience and still leverage that existing investment that you have in your applications through Configuration Manager. At a high level, the way Autopilot into co-management works is the administrator targets a configuration task sequence to the all provisioning devices collection, and they configure the co-management settings in Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. When the user goes through the Autopilot experience, Intune installs the Configuration Manager client, and it immediately calls a task sequence that was specified in that first step. The enrollment status page then waits for task sequence completion, giving the user a nice orchestrated and friendly view of the device configuration state while they wait for their device to be built. And the great thing here is that you can use this coupled with a nested task sequence in Configuration Manager so that you can still leverage that provisioning task sequence as part of your operating system deployment and have a consistent new device experience across OSD and Autopilot. Here you can see the creating of the co-management profile. And here I'm specifying that the Configuration Manager client will own the workloads as part of the provisioning process. And you can see here that I'm installing the Configuration Manager agent and calling that task sequence that I talked about earlier. This allows Configuration Manager to call that task sequence as part of the orchestrated flow of Autopilot. Here's an example of a wipe and load operating system deployment task sequence, and it probably looks like a simplified version of what you deploy today within your organization. Most of the steps in the task sequence are related to the wiping and loading of a new image onto that device. Highlighted are the steps that are responsible for configuring the device. And by that, I mean they take the Windows 10 device and make it secure and productive according to the organization's need. In order to leverage this task sequence as part of Autopilot into co-management, we take those steps that are used for the configuring and provisioning of the device and place them into their own provisioning task sequence. By removing the OSD portions, this task sequence can now be called during Autopilot and leverage the signature image that is shipped from the OEM on the device. I can also call this task sequence as a nested task sequence in a new and streamlined OSD task sequence. I can now ensure that the devices end up in the same state regardless of the initial provisioning method. And here, side by side, you can see those two provisioning methods. On the left, the Autopilot experience, installing Configuration Manager and calling a task sequence, and that status being reported up through the enrollment status page. And on the right, the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Configuration Manager task sequence installing through wipe and load. Regardless of the mechanism used in this example, the device ends up as exactly the same, with the same set of apps and the same set of configuration that was deployed during the task sequence. Regardless of the mechanism, we end up with a secure and productive device, no duplication of administrative effort across the provisioning scenario. Any change I make to my provisioning task sequence is reflected in both the modern provisioning and the wipe and load operating system deployment task sequence. This same new co-management policy in Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center can also be used to ensure that Intune is kept as the default workload when deploying Configuration Manager during Autopilot. Here I'm configuring Intune as the workload default. This is because in this example, all of my apps and configuration is coming from Intune. I still have the option to install the config manager agent, but in this case, I'm not deploying my provisioning task sequence during Autopilot. This workload ownership set to Intune resolves some scenarios customers may have seen when deploying Configuration Manager alongside other apps in Autopilot. This allows us to set the workload during provisioning and ensure that there's no conflict or flip-flop of configuration, and it allows apps and policy to apply in a timely fashion. Now let's have a look at how we can attach Configuration Manager to the cloud. I begin by going to the Configure Co-Management wizard within the console. And I'm going to provide my Intune Global Admin credentials to be able to make the connection. I have the option to import a previously created app in AAD. And for the moment, I'm going to disable co-management auto-enrollment. Ask me if I want to create the AAD app automatically. And then I'm going to enable Endpoint Analytics. Check the summary, click Next. And once the wizard's finished, my Configuration Manager environment is successfully onboarded to tenant attach, and I can begin to use cloud functionalities such as the help desk functionality, timeline, and CM Pivot. Now I'm ready to configure co-management auto-enrollment, and I begin by going into the co-management properties in my previously onboarded site. I go to the Enablement tab, and here I'm going to specify automatic enrollment into Intune. I'm ready to enroll all of my devices, so I set it to all. Earlier, I talked about immediate cloud value, so I'm going to go set some workloads. Conditional access is a great example of immediate cloud value that you get when you co-manage your devices. So I'm going to move that workload over to Intune so that I can begin to deploy conditional access policies and protect my Windows 10 estate and the users using those devices. I'm going to set the workloads to pilot so that I can begin to deploy workloads and configuration from Microsoft Endpoint Manager Intune. Now let's look at some immediate cloud value that you can get by tenant attaching. We've been building a number of tools to better enable the help desk operators within your organization. And we'll start by finding the device by the user. So in Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, I start in the troubleshooting menu, and I select user, and I search for the user that is on the call with me. Once I've selected the user, confirm the selection, and the troubleshooting portal will load the context of that user, including any deployments to that user, and also any devices that that user may have enrolled into Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Here I can see some useful information about the device. And because this device is tenant attached coming from Configuration Manager, I have some more options available to me. I click into Client Details, and this will load some information that the Configuration Manager database holds, including some information sent in real time from the client. This gives me insight as to whether the device is online, whether there's a user logged on, and even things like whether they're on the internet and what management point they're connected to. So in this scenario, Jack has rung the help desk, and he's reporting an issue with his device. So let's begin by loading the timeline. Timeline gives us a linear view of events that have occurred on a device. Within timeline, events may include management events, such as application installs or communication to the Configuration Manager environment, application crashes, software update installations. Here you can see that the user has had a number of app crashes since they last used the device. This information is sent every 24 hours, but by pressing sync, I can request that the Config Manager client sends any events that have occurred since the last sync. I get confirmation in the admin center that that sync is completed. I hit refresh, and you'll see that the timeline updates with events that have occurred since that last sync. And again, I can see that there's more abnormal shutdowns and application and device crashes that are causing issues. If I click into the application crash, I can see information about the application that is crashing, including the full path and also the version of the application. If I scroll down in timeline, I can see here that the application in question was actually installed just prior to the start of the issues that the user is reporting. So it suggests that this application install is what's causing the issue for the user. It turns out that this is a known issue within the environment, and there's a script that I can deploy from the help desk in order to remediate this issue. So let's go into the scripts menu. And here you can see the list of scripts that are available for me as a help desk operator within the organization. And here I can see the remediate Prozware 2.3.0 crash issue. Here I'm able to run the script. I can see details on the running status of the script. And I get confirmation that the script succeeded on the device. And in the output box, I can see that remediation was successful and have resolved the issue for the user. If I refresh the script pane, I can see further confirmation that that script succeeded. Another great example of immediate cloud value when you onboard to tenant attach or co-management in Configuration Manager is Endpoint Analytics. Endpoint Analytics gives you information to optimize your PC performance within your organization and improve corporate access with best practices and recommendations for remote users. Endpoint Analytics provides insights from power on through the productivity of the user throughout the day, through to them leaving for the end of the day. Endpoint Analytics gives you insights into things like power on diagnostics, app health statistics, and also information around loss of productivity due to app and OS reliability issues. Endpoint Analytics will give you insights to show how many endpoints have been affected by a given productivity impact and quantifies the impact in terms of performance versus non-affected endpoints and projected improvements that you can make to resolve that issue. In this example shown, you can see that devices that don't have SSDs are on average 14.51 seconds slower than those devices with SSDs. And if you upgrade those devices, you'll boost your productivity score by 3 points. Every insight in Endpoint Analytics is coupled with a recommended action to give you a next best step to help improve the user experience of your devices. Additionally, for your co-managed clients, you can benefit from proactive remediations. Proactive remediations allow you to fix common support issues before your employees even notice. By coupling a detection script to monitor for known issues and running a remediation script to fix the issue when it's detected, you can prevent those users from ever having to ring the help desk in the first place. Endpoint Analytics provides a number of Microsoft supplied scripts, or you can create your own. In fact, let's take that known issue from earlier with the Prozware app crashing on the device and convert that into a proactive script. By moving from a reactive fix to a proactive script, that means we'll be able to fix the issue before the user is even aware and prevent them from ever having to call the help desk. Within the reports section of the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, I select the Endpoint Analytics menu option. I select Proactive Remediations, and here I can see the scripts that already exist within my environment. I'm going to create a new script for this example, and I'm going to specify some basic information about the script, such as the name and a description. And here I'm going to specify the detection script and the remediation script. The detection script allows me to define when the issue is discovered. In this example, I'm looking to see whether the application is installed, the version of the application when it is installed, and then also finally checking to see if the issue is in fact detected. If the issue is detected, we will then run the remediation script to fix the issue. In this case, it's a simple change to set a timeout value in the registry. I'm then going to assign the script to all of my devices. And if I wish, I can change the schedule that the script runs. In this example, I'm going to leave it to run daily. If I want, I can specify any exclusion groups. I get a final chance to review the script that I've created, and I hit create. I see confirmation in the portal that the script has been successfully created. Refresh the view to see the new script. And here you can see that deep status information that we have about the script. The number of devices where it's been found, the number of devices where it hasn't been found, the number of times where the issue has been fixed, and crucially, the number of times that we've had to rerun the script because the issue reoccurred. If you're interested in learning more about endpoint analytics and proactive remediations, check out the MEM 10 session that goes into more detail on endpoint analytics. In summary, use the power of the Microsoft Cloud to amplify your existing management, and use the cloud that brings you business value. And remember that attaching Configuration Manager to the cloud can bring immediate cloud value. To do this, go and connect your existing Configuration Manager environment to Intune to unleash the true power of Microsoft Endpoint Manager and begin to enroll your devices into co-management for additional cloud value. We have a number of other sessions covering all different aspects of device management within Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Find them in the video hub. And if you missed Brad's session or any of the others here, make sure you catch those as well. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more, check out the link, and we'll see you again soon.